Hello, today we are interviewing Dr. Samuel Gregg. He is the Director of Research at Acton Institute in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Today I want to talk to you about yourself and the Acton Institute. And so the first question would be, how does an Australian political philosopher decide to pursue Ph.D. studies in Great Britain?
Well, I think those sorts of questions, there's many answers, but I think the basic thing for me was I was very interested in natural law theory. I was also very interested in political economy. And I knew that maybe the world's leading natural law theorist, John Finnis, who's also Australian by birth, ironically, was the professor of jurisprudence at Oxford, and I wanted to work with him. So I made the conscious decision to go to Oxford because I knew that there was no finer person to work with when it came to natural law theory. And it turned out that he knew a fair amount about economics as well. And so that was very useful working with him. And I think that in many cases is what often determines people's decisions when it comes to doctoral work. Sometimes it's about the institution, and going to Oxford was wonderful. I learned many things, I met many interesting people. It's a wonderful place to study. But I think in many cases it's also determined by who you want to work with as a supervisor. And John Finnis was ideal for me.
Okay, and what was he like as a mentor?
Very tough. So I remember when I started writing papers. In the Oxford system, you write papers to start off with, to clarify your ideas. And I would get back these reports with just red ink everywhere. And he would actually go and check things like Latin citations that I had quoted. And he'd say, no, that's not quite right. It doesn't really mean that. It really means this. So it was very, very rigorous, tough-minded supervision. But that was fine because I realized that if I can get my doctoral thesis to the position where he's happy with it, I'm probably not going to have many problems with the examiners. And he's, of course, a very learned man. He's capable of talking about anything ranging from Shakespeare to some of the finer points of moral theology. So working with a mind of that quality, I think, was a great privilege that I was lucky enough to have. And we've kept in contact, and I still continue to be shaped and influenced by many of his writings on all sorts of subjects, ranging from the nature of justice to the role of the state to the character of rights. And of course, very important debates about the nature of natural law itself.
Okay, great. And who else has influenced your worldview?
Well, I think most of the people who have influenced my worldview are dead, in the sense that I read very carefully Aristotle, I read Cicero very carefully, I read a number of people like Adam Smith. His book, The Wealth of Nations, was very influential in shaping my thinking about many things. I'd also say when it comes to people who are more contemporary, Michael Novak, the American theologian who wrote that very important book, The Spirit of Democratic Capitalism, was very influential in shaping my thinking about the relationship between my Catholic faith, good philosophy, but also an appreciation and understanding of how markets work and the ways in which free markets don't just produce great material wealth, but provide enormous opportunities for human flourishing in that broader sense in general.
And how did you end up working in a think tank? The transition from the academic world after getting a PhD and then going into the Acton Institute?
Well, I knew about the Acton Institute. I'd followed its work very carefully. And I'd also come to the conclusion that when it came to the type of calling that I thought I had, that a think tank environment was likely to be better. I like universities. I go to universities all the time and lecture. I enjoy the dialogue with students. I even enjoy getting hostile, even very critical people asking me questions, which is fine. But in think tanks, I think there's particularly a good emphasis upon doing focused research. You just can't do whatever you want. You have to be very focused in what you're working on. But also there's enormous opportunities, I think, opening up for educational formation through the world of think tanks that in some respects is compensating for some serious gaps that exist in the world of universities, especially when it comes to things like good economic thinking, but also some good natural law thinking as well.
So the Acton Institute, where you work, it has been ranked by several organizations among the 50 most influential think tanks. Some international rankings also place it at the top of the list. So what do you think has contributed to Acton Institute's great success?
Well, many things. We've had wonderful leadership from Father Robert Sirico and Chris Maurin, who are the co-founders of the Institute. Their vision and their strategic insight about how they wanted to shape thinking of religious believers when it came to ideas of limited government and economic freedom are very, very important. And they've done a great job in really starting an institution, seeing it grow, and helping it transition to its next stage of institutional growth. They've done a marvelous job in that regard. When it comes to other reasons for its success, I think there's a great yearning on the part of people who are religious believers who want to be able to look and understand the free society and the free economy, and who want to see a type of interaction between what they believe in terms of their faith and their morality and their philosophy and what they understand about the market economy. There are just very few institutions and individuals that do that, and I think there are even less that do it well. Another reason I think Acton's been successful is that its ideas are genuinely universal. Our focus has always been universal. Although we're based in the United States, we have always had this international approach. Another thing I'd say is that Acton works across confessional boundaries. We've done work with members of the Jewish community, we've done work with Roman Catholics, we've done work with Eastern Orthodox Christians, we've done a great deal of work with evangelical Christians as well. And that interconfessional approach, I think, is very important because it enables a lot of discussion among people who believe some of the same things but also disagree about some things, but who are also quite united about the importance of grounding the case for a religious worldview, linking it with the case for free markets and limited government, and seeing how these things complement each other. And sometimes that's a tense thing because it doesn't always work out as one expects, but I think it lends itself to a great deal of creativity when it comes to renewing the sources of civilizational development, which is, I think, in many respects, what Acton is in the business of doing.
What do you think Acton has to do going forward in terms of continuing to further this this worldview or this way of focusing on society?
Well, most of our work is of the research type, and I head the research department, and educational programs. We are looking for ways to enhance both of those activities. We're also looking for ways to enhance our extensive media outreach. We've produced a number of very high-ranked and highly awarded documentaries, educational curriculum, which are available in different languages, in visual form, all over the world. So we are constantly looking for new ways, whether it's by books or social media, for magnifying the message across language and cultural boundaries, but nonetheless keeping the message comprehensible, because the content of the message doesn't change. The means and medium of delivery is always changing. But we want to make sure that as we do that and we take opportunities that we see out there with new forms of technology, that we maintain the integrity and the coherence and the depth of the ideas.
Okay, what's your favorite part of being director of research?
Well, I get to write and think about subjects that I'm already interested in. I get to supervise a team of scholars who have some of the best qualifications from some of the best universities and colleges in the world. I like the fact that we do highly interdisciplinary work. We're really working at the intersection of good theology, good philosophy, and good economics. There's not many places in the world that you can do that. Another thing I like is lecturing and talking and discussing and shaping the minds of students, but not just students. Business people, religious leaders, seminarians, pastors who are starting out in their first mission work. That's all very interesting work that you just don't get much of an opportunity to do in many other places. And I think that when it comes to Acton, most of the people working there, why are they there? They're there because they're committed to the mission. It's a very mission-driven organization. And again, that's hard to find in much of the world today.
I agree. And so congratulations on the work you do, and thanks for sharing your experiences with us.
My pleasure, and thank you for having me at UFM once again.
Thank you.